Good to see you. We'll do it again. All right. I have. I hope it's a good thing. When someone says, "Oh, you've changed." Okay. Now, when you spend some time with someone, you're left with more thinking. Were they referring to I've gotten old, or you look like you've lost weight, or you put on weight, or during the conversation, and they notice a change in you. So it got me thinking, what do we actually mean when someone says you've changed? I definitely know I have, but I definitely know that the core of me has not. You're not the same person you used to be. What are you actually referring to? Sometimes I look back at periods there of my life, which I do say often on a couple of other videos. It's a good reference point. And I think that from time to time, we look at where we were and what we were doing and who we were with, who we were hanging out with. And how was I behaving back then? So it's definitely an eye opener. You can have a giggle about it, but if I had my brother or my sister sitting here, it'd say, "Wow, look at your hairstyle back then." Mind you, I didn't have any hair. I mean, it was going pretty fast. So that's always a funny one when you look back at photos. But anyway, get to the point. For me, I'm picking a time here where I've definitely changed in an aspect. As for a good example, I spent a lot of time in a plane and on a project. Yeah, different countries, different time zones. I'd leave a project, I'd jump on a helicopter. There was a crew of us guys. There was ultimately about 12, but there were 6 of us that were going to project to project. And this was like an ongoing contract. So we'd head back to the domestic airport, catch that to the international airport, and do it all over again. So I spent most of my time either in the waiting lounge, trying to find a 4 or 5 seater empty, so I could just put my backpack down and fall asleep, or it would be in the plane. And looking back, those days off were pretty much at the terminal or sleeping, that is, or in the plane. And I was so proud of it that I wore it like a badge. I felt like I was on a mission. And when you've been given an opportunity, I felt like I was a yes man, and saving money, moved to this country, and I had the strong desire to get myself a little humble studio, and I felt resilient. You feel good, but at the same time, I was very reliable. And I built that with my boss, because I always had that mentality to just get the job done. Not on my own, of course. There's always a team of us that we would show up every day, and I think that's why we got along so well. And a lot of pride, being someone who others could rely on. Always be there. Considering you're flying different countries, when your boss isn't there, he's actually just sending you the itinerary. So you build that trust. So it felt good. Good rapport, good relationship, good professional relationship. And but here's what I'm saying is that eventually there was a cost, and everything started to catch up with me. I just felt the fatigue was definitely there, but you push through it. Men push through it, women do too. But for us guys, we would just get on with it. But over time, I would still keep pushing through and ignoring the signs. And maybe because that wasn't a feeling of, it's coming to an end. I didn't want it to end because the mind was saying one thing, but the body was taking the effects over time. And when you're in this vision and you're earning good money and you got this opportunity and as I said, you feel like you're in this never-ending contract, and you just keep what's the word, adding more to your plate. So once I get this little property, okay, I'm going to get this car, I'm going to do this. And you had all these plans lined up before you've even got to the first one yet. So it was exciting. And I think the adrenaline just kept me wired. Nobody was forcing me to do it. I knew I could handle it. Sure, big chunk of ego there. But while the mindset was invaluable for that, and it still is to this day, it also meant I ignored what was going on with my health. And eventually life gave me a wake-up call. Now, if you ask me whether I've changed because of that experience, I would probably say no. The core of who I am feels pretty much the same. I'm still that guy. Pride, show up, work hard, bring it. Right? You just bring it, and get on with it. But I think what changed was I look then and look now is my awareness. The experience taught me that sometimes you don't see it, even though you know it, or you don't want to see it. You choose not to see it. And maybe that was the case at the time. Would I still take the opportunity today? Yes, I would. I'd still give it my all. But if I was to go ahead and sign that contract to do it all again, I would speak up a bit more this time. Yeah, not as in say my piece. I mean as in, don't be afraid to say, hey, listen, I'm delivering, I'm showing up, but I need a day here or there, just to recover a bit. But these time zones and the travels and so many people out there do this sort of stuff, and it ends up biting you on the back later. It catches up with you. So I think I'd be more willing to pace myself, recognizing that pushing harder wasn't always the answer. Because when we say someone has changed, which is what got me thinking, are we really saying that we've become a different person, or are we saying that we've gained a different perspective? Because as we all know, life teaches us all the time, whether we rise to success or have disappointments, or we go through family challenges, love life, health, loss, anything that is in that domain of impacting you greatly, those sort of challenges, these experiences we never see coming. And sometimes those experiences change the way we look at everything. So it's valid when someone says, oh yeah, he or she's changed a little bit, because they view things a little bit more differently now. So it left a mark on you. And I don't feel there's negativity there. I think it's just, we all know it's part of life. Everything's impermanent. It's just getting, I guess, accustomed to that. Yep. Things happen in life, and we just got to align with that and not be resistant. Yeah. So sometimes those experiences do change the way we look at everything, for sure. The decisions, what we value. And I think another one is very common is what we're willing to tolerate. We get older, and I think you get so much more refined in your own skin. Get comfy in your own skin. It's like, oh, I don't think I'd put up with that now. Yeah, you wouldn't go through those hoops like you used to as a young fella in my case. Um, but does that mean we've changed or become more aware? I'm smiling inside because I've just got some visuals in my head. I go, oh, no, I wouldn't go through that again. But anyway, yeah, limitations and also what matters is a big one. Who knows? You know, the only people knows is ourselves. So could be a combination of all of those perspectives. That's why it's such a maybe a challenging question to answer. But you know what? I think I was touching on before. There's people that do completely reinvent themselves, and it's very admirable from where they come from and become who they become. I have so much admiration for people like that because they can be definitely great role models and a lot of respect for those people. Others gain a lot of wisdom through experience. Hence, they make smarter choices for themselves personally moving forward in life. And so somewhere maybe the truth of all of this sits somewhere in between. But life has a way of definitely teaching us things we couldn't learn any other way. Yeah. Whether we can all, see that change, it's part of our, I guess, evolution, throwing a big word there. But, our own self-growth and awareness and experience probably depends on really who's telling the story, because we've all got a story. Yeah. And the question is whether people change. Maybe it's the question, what do we actually mean when we say they have changed? Anyway, so I thought I'd give a bit of insight on that one, where I was a stage of my life and how I was so committed. And as I said, I would do it all over again, yeah, but I would do it differently. So have I changed the core of me? No, it's still there. Just evolved, more awareness. I think would be less naive. I'd speak up a little bit more on a respectful level, of course, especially when it's my superior who gave me the opportunity to begin with. But you know what? If I had a little bit more confidence in myself back then, and I did approach him, he probably would have said, no problem. Crazy, isn't it? So you never know unless you give it a go. Or you never know unless you speak up and say, what's the worst that can happen? You say no. So, but anyway, yeah, that was something that popped into my mind. I thought it would be good to make this video on, do we actually change? See you next time.